Welcome to Nasdaq Trade Talks. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq. Joining us remotely is Ethan Fast, who's the co-founder and Chief Technology Officer at Nash. We're going to take a look at the impact of COVID-19 on the digital asset space. Ethan, thanks so much for joining us. It certainly has been unprecedented times in traditional asset classes, and especially with digital assets. Before we get into the impact of COVID-19, give us an overview of Nash, what makes it important, how it's different from other digital asset exchanges.
Hey Jill, sure. Thanks for inviting me on. It's great to be here, yeah, this is definitely an unprecedented time. So Nash broadly provides non-custodial trading and asset management services for cryptocurrencies, and the really critical thing is that we do this in a way that's just as performant and usable as centralized exchanges or traditional financial exchanges. So to oversimplify this a bit, right now you really have two kinds of exchanges in the space that allow you to trade cryptocurrencies. Some are custodial or centralized, and these take custody of your assets while you're trading, but they tend to have better performance and usability. Unfortunately, you need to trust that exchange with your assets, and this really often isn't a good idea. For example, in 2019, we saw hundreds of millions of dollars of value stolen. And then on the other side, you have non-custodial exchanges, sometimes called decentralized exchanges. These allow users to maintain control and custody of assets, but often suffer from lack of performance, usability, and liquidity. So Nash is building solutions that we sort of see as the best of both worlds. They're non-custodial, but support high liquidity and a good user experience for our customers.
Let's talk about Nash and remote work in this COVID-19 environment that we're in. I would imagine being a digital asset exchange, a newer player in the space, that working remotely, being a technology company, has not been too big of a transition?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of these big things we've seen with COVID-19 is the shift to remote work setups across companies. And I think we've seen in many cases, companies aren't prepared for it. So we at Nash are a bit fortunate in that we've really always been working this way. In fact, from day one, we were set up in a distributed environment. Actually, all of our co-founders were located all over the world. And we've continued to build out the team that way. So we've kind of seen a counterintuitive situation where, for us, actually, productivity has increased across our teams. And maybe that's because there really is less for people to do right now in general. But that said, we really try to be supportive of the challenges that everyone faces, right? Whether you're working in a remote team or not, we'd really encourage other companies to understand that, especially if your people aren't used to working that way.
It certainly has been a transition. I think we're all busier because we're not on the road, we're not traveling, we're not attending conferences, and where we are at all times, which has really been an interesting transition for us. What about the impact of COVID-19 on the digital asset space in general? Does it help the case? Do you think it'll spur more institutional adoption? Do you think financial services in general are going to look at this different?
Yeah, so I mean, just anecdotally, I've seen more people who maybe I wouldn't expect to be interested in cryptocurrencies starting to get interested in them as an asset class. And I think this might be a bit of a response to this sort of really massive amount of quantitative easing that's going on right now by the US Fed. So people kind of gravitate maybe towards assets where you don't have this potential inflationary force. And for example, the CEO of Coinbase recently tweeted something about seeing a big spike in deposits with values around like $1,200, which is about the amount that people are getting in their stimulus checks. So there may be really something to this idea that people are kind of seeing this as an alternative asset class now.
That's really interesting. Way to put two and two together there. So looking beyond COVID-19 and the crypto space in general, blockchain, financial services, what's the focus going to be on the remainder of 2020?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a few major trends that we see, and many of which that we are working on. So one of the big ones is kind of decentralized finance. Often this is called like DeFi in the space. That's been growing a lot. We've seen interest in technology that allows you to sort of earn interest on digital assets or to allow you to lend or borrow those assets in a totally non-custodial way. We've also seen people like thinking about how to construct more exotic assets, like leverage bets on the price of one of these assets, or even like non-custodial options trading. And this is definitely stuff that Nash is working on. Another big thing, kind of as I hinted at the beginning, is continuing this trend towards better usability. This is really what drove my interest in starting Nash, and continues to be something that many people are working on. We're seeing a lot of improvements To call out one really big example, I think we're going to see a lot. We're going to see a more advanced form of cryptography called threshold signatures. This is a little in the weeds, but this thing's going to work its way into many products. So this technology really offers much stronger security guarantees on consumer funds, basically helping prevent hacks. And we're going to see many, many people adopt this sort of thing. This is actually something that Nash offers right now. Finally, really quickly, I do think we're also going to see more adoption by governments. So just, recently we've seen the Chinese central bank start testing digital currencies at pretty large scale. We've seen the proposal for US digital dollars come up more and more frequently. So it's still really early, but I think we're going to see this happen in a big way over the next few years.
All right, Ethan, anything new and exciting to announce for 2020, Nash?
Yeah, so we're going to have our Bitcoin, non-custodial Bitcoin trading services out as of today for tier 2 users under KYC, and it will open this week for every user. So we're really excited about that.
All right, great. Thank you so much for joining us on Trade Talks.
Thanks, Jill.
All right, and thanks for joining me. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.